Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today, I have Stephanie Versin of Veritas Investments. We're going to talk about technology and how their company grew up in technology. And they got the most innovative corporate strategy for the CPE Influence Awards. Stephanie has been listed in 2022 as one of the most influential women in Bay Area business. So I am thrilled to have her joining us today. Thank you, Stephanie, for joining me.
Thank you so much, Brent, for having me today.
So I noticed that when Veritas came to be, it was a little different, it sounded like, than a normal property management company or ownership group, where a lot of companies, they start as a traditional property manager or management company, and they add in technology to either augment or replace existing functions. It sounds like you all started at the origination of the company being a tech forward company. And so I know that you weren't there for the founding, but I'd like to understand some of the backstory, if you could, about how you all approach technology and how your culture has been defined by being tech forward right from the beginning.
Absolutely, Brent. So let me first explain to you a little bit what Veritas Investments is, because that will really tell you why we are so tech forward. Um, at Veritas, we manage a very unique portfolio of smaller classic assets. We have about 350 buildings in San Francisco, Oakland, and LA. And we have a total of about 8,000 units in those three markets. Our portfolio is urban, very geographically dense, and there is no one on site because our assets are very small. We have about the size average 20 to 25 units. Therefore, there is no one on site for leasing or maintenance for that reason. So we were very early on, Veritas recognized that we had to a necessity for an innovative approach to leasing, maintenance, property management in general, due to the physicality limitations of our assets. And we also have been founded by our CEO, Yat Peng Ho, and he has always been a very tech savvy leader. We are located in San Francisco, next to the Silicon Valley. And very early on, back in 2007, when Peng started, he knew that we had to really compensate our gap or our physical limitation with technology. So we took advantage of being geographically very close to the Silicon Valley, very close to those startup, prop tech, innovators, and tried. We started by really defining our gaps, defining our risk, defining our pain points, and see what was available on the market to help us. Back in the days, we were doing turns management on Excel spreadsheets. We were having very complex, complicated workflows handled by spreadsheets. Then it was moved into smart sheets. And then finally, in 2018, we embarked into using Salesforce. So the backbone of our proprietary technology is a Salesforce architecture data. And from there, our in-house IT team built up the customization of very complex workflow that Salesforce can accommodate. And from there, it really, really helped us to have one source of truth. And it's called Veritas Drive, and it's a Salesforce application.
That's really interesting. So you have both a proprietary element but built upon Salesforce. Does that mean that you can leverage, Salesforce APIs for integration purposes a little bit easier than having everything done in-house?
Exactly. So as you can imagine, Salesforce weaves together a dozen proprietary technology as well as off-shelf technologies that makes our management runs, operation runs on the back end. And that's the power of Salesforce, is that they can actually aggregate all those technologies and create those very intelligent workflow to help us with, from leasing to maintenance to turn management, and save us tons of time.
So when you have a new process that um, you want to approach, you have this issue. How do you determine whether or not you're going to build it yourself within your own systems versus find an external third party provider?
That's an excellent question. You know, when I just mentioned the turns, for example, and back in the days, Salesforce was not existing in 2008, 2009. We were looking at trying to build our turn tracker in Yardi.
Mhm.
So our in-house technology team tried with Yardi, because we're a Yardi backend system as well, and they very quickly realized that there was limitations into these legacy systems. And nowadays, the really Salesforce was the most agile backbone technology to use to be adapting all our workflow, because there's so much specificities into what we are doing. We are very small. At the same time, we have 300 plus buildings, and we operate a centralized leasing, marketing, maintenance, collections, accounting, and resident services. So right there, right now, it's already a pretty good complex proposal for any legacy systems to handle.
So I love. Okay, we're gonna get into that more. Anybody who's watching, we're gonna actually have a part two to this video because we're gonna dig into centralization and then walk through a lot of these different systems because I think it's fascinating that because you're so distributed that you've had to do these centralized approaches for a lot longer than somebody who has big larger properties, and so I think that gives you in a way a very unique advantage from that perspective.
You
um,
know, just one more thing. I think scalability is a key word here. We handle, manage small assets that technically don't have the benefits of scalability, except that we are aggregating all our assets together to become scalable business. And this is only allowed thanks to technology.
that's fantastic. Okay, so so you said you are using Yardi, but as like the accounting piece, and then
Yes.
you're almost leveraging like almost like your own supplier at that point for all these different functions then to integrate with. Does that sound, is that accurate?
Yes. So we have this is accurate. We have Yardi as a backend as for the resident accounting ledger. We use Yardi for screening and the leasing process as well.
Okay.
But we have a CRM called Funnel to absorb all our leads and make the tracking of all our lead source possible from all our buildings. So we have a lot of technology weaved together, and really again the backbone is Veritas Drive, which is a Salesforce application.
So you are doing things before a lot of other companies are. A lot of companies wait to have it validated by somebody else, and you're ahead of the game in a lot of ways. What were what are some of the things that you have gone through that you're like, okay, well now we know we need to do this or approach it this way? What are some things that if you had known this a while back, you would have done things differently when it comes to tech adoption?
I think it's from my own experience, it's really having a vendor that is a partner, and this partner really needs to understand our specificities, because we are, as I was explaining, very unique. We are not a garden style. We are completely centralized, and most of the off-shelf solution nowadays are more for the traditional property management leasing model, and we are extremely ahead of everyone due to our physical limitation, but also because it makes sense to centralize the type of assets we have. So finding a partner that right away understand our specificities, our own challenges, and a partner that is open to adapt their off-shelf solution to our specificities, I think, is what we are looking for most of the time. The discovery aspect of any technology for us is very important to vet the flexibility of any partners.
It seems to me that when you have a technology, provider, and they're relatively new, the first companies that they work with, they tend to define their service almost based upon those first customers because they are wanting to grow with them, and so it kind of they can work a lot more in tandem in that respect, and you may have more flexibility in customizations because you're one of their first clients, or you're and the larger they get, maybe they have more set, defined processes. Do you find that in any way? Like it's sometimes easier to work with a company who is early on because then they can grow with you and you can define how their service might look based upon your specific needs?
Absolutely. I think we are the best proving ground of any tech startup because we are so complicated to start with, because we are so complex in our own ecosystem. So if you can figure it out, then you can test your product with us. You can upgrade and improve your product with us. You can enhance it, and then you will be ready to really launch it nationally, because any complicated scenarios would have probably been done through us already, because we're the most complex and the most specified, I would say, ecosystem to handle. And that's the case with Funnel, which is our current CRM. We work together for a couple years now to make sure that their technology is feeding our needs, and our needs are evolving all the time. We are in 3 markets today, we'll be in 5 markets tomorrow, and the centralization concept is hard to really support fully when you think about the industry we are in right now, which is much more traditional. You have one building here, and you have an on-site team right there. Your technology needs to be flexible to be built for multi levels of integration. You can be hybrid, you can be fully centralized. I think we've seen in the industry lately that there's so many versions of what centralization means. It means something different for every company, especially because it's based on your geography, it's based on your internal resources, it's based on your financial partners as well. What's the agreement? So it's more complicated, and you have to be flexible. Otherwise, you will only serve a piece of the pie.
I definitely want to get into that in just a moment in part two. So, everybody, if you're watching this right now, keep a lookout for part two when it comes out. Before we end the day, I'm curious, do you all also have a tech fund that invests in prop tech suppliers? I'm just curious.
We do. We do. I think, as I mentioned, our founder is very tech savvy and also is always looking for the next best improvement and how to help those startups to actually, again, be the proving ground. We can help them to finalize and update and improve their product. So our CEO is very invested in finding new solutions, helping prop tech companies to not just have a concept, but we could be the guinea pig. We can test, we can pilot, we can help. So there is that part as well that he is very passionate about.
I love this. Okay, so you all, this is the end of today's part one. If you have any questions, throw them down below, and I will try to entice Stephanie to come back and answer those questions. So thank you again for watching this, Stephanie. Thank you so much for joining me, and we will be back soon with part two.
Thank you, Brent.